No, I think this is what qualifies as a rock star.
Oh, it looks the part anyway.
I mean, you're on the road. You're in a kind of a hipster hotel lounge.
Yeah.
They're carrying growlers. Past us. Did you see? The one just passed us right there. Do you call them growlers over here?
I don't know what you're referring to.
That's the glass bottle you put beer in when you go to a what do you guys call them in Canada? You don't call them growlers?
They're growlers.
Growlers?
No, I think we call them a jug.
Yeah, it'd be a jug. I mean, it's definitely a jug, but it's kind of a jug with a purpose.
Hey, everybody, Todd Conklin, Pre-Accident Podcast. This is the podcast. Been spending a lot of time with you lately. It seems like we're hanging out more than we used to, and a lot of new people are joining us, and you're always welcome. I'm glad you're here. In fact, if I haven't taken time to greet you, it's only because there's so much other crap going on that it's fallen to the wayside, and it should not fall to the wayside. If you've not listened to this podcast before, it's just a community of people that think about resilience and reliability, and most of us have jobs where we have to help people manage high-risk work and that kind of stuff, high-risk outcomes. We deal a lot with uncertainty, but, you're an expert at that, because if you live in the world I live in, the same planet I'm upon, you're dealing with uncertainty every single day. And that is been a big part of our narrative for a while. Today's podcast is a little different. It's pre-COVID-19. In fact, it's barely pre-COVID-19. It's like a week pre-COVID-19. But it's a discussion, and it's a discussion I've been wanting to have with David Provan. He is Drew Ray's partner on the Safety of Work podcast, but he's also a remarkable safety thinker and has quite a company. He's going to talk about it, actually, in the podcast in Australia. I wonder what he's doing now, but I wonder what we're all doing now. Hell, I don't have a clue what we're doing now. But I wanted to get this out there, even though I don't think it's as timely as it is as the other ones, because it's pre-COVID. I mean, it's the old world, not the world we live in now. But I think there's lots of benefit to it, and I think it's kind of like the sorbet. It'll cleanse your mind a little bit. Think about a world that was much simpler, a world without COVID-19. And that's kind of what you're going to hear, at least in this podcast. And that's a big part of it. We were in the Wollongong, I think I'm saying that right, Australia. And our hotel we stayed in, we sat down to do a podcast. I asked David, I said, do you have a few moments? I got my stuff. And he said, I'd be glad to be on the world's most popular safety podcast. Thank you, David. You're so sweet. So we sat down to record it, and you should know we got kicked out of – I've never been kicked out of a hotel lounge before, because I thought hotel lounges were hotel lounges, and we were both guests there, but we got kicked out kind of about halfway through, which is probably fine, because I think we would have gone way too long. But it's a great conversation. It's a conversation that I think you're going to enjoy listening to, and that's what we're going to do. So sit back and relax, take some time. I won't talk much longer, maybe a little bit on the end of it. I hope you're doing okay. This will help, because it really will remind you of a time. I can't believe I'm saying this, but a simpler time, because this was a simpler time. I don't know how else to say that. Here's David Provan. He's well worth the listen. Sit back and relax and enjoy. We're going to have a nice conversation.
So tell us what's been going on. What's interesting? What's new?
So what's going on, I suppose, we're starting to do more and more consulting work with organisations in the new view space. So organisations in Australia, at least, are starting to get a little bit bolder with these ideas. And what we found is when they start doing some new view work, they bolt a few learning teams onto their side of their organisation, but they kind of don't fundamentally change the way that they think about how they're doing safety.
Do you think learning teams help start that dialogue? Is it the beginning of change? Because I'm really mixed on this, because I see learning teams as a tool, but not a product. And it worries me that people want to do something so much that they use these learning teams in lieu of actually shifting the paradigm and going into another level. But they see it as successful, because it's normally pretty successful.
Yeah, I think I'd agree with that comment. That's a fair comment. I think depending on how the organisation does learning teams, whether it really tries to understand how to use them the way that they can be really, really effective. But when they're just sort of seeing it as a program and doing a few of these things to be trying to do something, just trying to do something different without really committing in behind it and without acting on any of the lessons that come out and not actually changing the way that they make decisions, then I don't think it does.
Yeah, much. I see it kind of dangerous, almost in a way. It's almost anti-theoretical to what we want to do. It's in lieu of change.
Yeah, I think sitting around in a room for a day or 2 days and having a great conversation and eating some good food and then walking away and still running your organisation the way that you've always run it is kind of a waste of time.
Yeah, and it's the worst kind of waste of time because they feel like they've been inoculated. Yeah. So, we went through that training. We did all that, and now we do it. And any group that says they do it, that immediately scares me.
And I think now, and then managers and safety professionals actually think they understand work as done after they've done a couple of learning teams, and then that gives them almost more confidence to then run off and make decisions in isolation because they're sort of like consciously incompetent. Yeah,
I think it's probably it's very psychological, but it's a good way to talk about it. So talk about your company. I'm curious about your company.
Yeah, so our company, ForgeWorks, was sort of something that I always wanted to do because when I was a practitioner for 20 years, I always struggled to find the right safety consulting advice from outside. Companies that weren't going to come with off-the-shelf products and try to sell me something that I didn't need just because it was part of their product catalogue. I'd done interventions like many practitioners had with the DuPonts of the world and the big four kind of management consultancy firms. And what I wanted to create was something that would seek to understand the problems that organisations face and then co-design improvement programs or solutions with them and build capability into the organisations and primarily through the safety team because I don't know why an organisation would pay to have an entire safety team and then sort of sideline them and engage safety consultants. That kind of feels like double paying for something. So, we always try to work with the internal capability in the organisation, improve it, strengthen it, support it, and then design something that's going to be directly relevant and useful to that business. But, on the downside, it's really hard to manage scale and quality with a business that doesn't have any off-the-shelf products.
Well, it's interesting you talk about, So first of all, and there's nothing flashy to sell, right? So you don't have the sexy product that you can come in with the brochure and the Bradley curve. Oh, sorry, the curve, the maturity curve that sometimes is called Bradley. But I'm interested in two things. One is, why do you think the safety professionals have the hardest time accepting help? I don't know. I'm trying to think how to ask this question politically. It strikes me they have the most vested interest and so the highest sunk cost in making changes.
Yeah, sunk cost is a really good way of describing it, Todd. I think either they don't believe that something needs to change because they've built a career and reputation based on what they've been doing, so they don't believe they need to change, or if they do need to change, then how they then go about back to their organisation and putting their hands up and saying, actually, we've been approaching this whole thing wrong. And I did that. In 2010, when I really reflected on what I've been doing in my career and wanted to make a change, I went back to the executive team of my organisation and said, I've been getting this wrong.
How did that feel? What'd that look like? Talk us through that. I'm curious.
Well, I was kind of at the end of my frustration because the organisation was just telling us to try harder, telling us to make the injuries go away, and telling us to try harder doing the things that we were always doing, compliance and rules and training and managing workers into sort of the square pegs that we wanted them to be, and it just wasn't working. And all my time in the field was just telling me that was not the way that work happens. That's not what the workers needed. So I was kind of in one of those spots where it was either stand up and say we need to do this differently, or probably either leave the profession or leave my job and go and find something else to do because I just no longer had any belief that what we were doing was useful to the people who are exposed to the risk.
So midlife crisis, kind of.
Yeah, midlife crisis.
So a lot of people would buy a Corvette or have an affair or both. Both are an option.
Well, when we started doing this work, and then Sydney Decker had come to Australia in 2012, so I went to him and I said kind of like, what does all this stuff mean? What does all this new view stuff mean for the safety profession? And his answer to me was, well, I think the whole safety profession is pretty much an unnecessary nuisance. Like if they all just went away and managers did what managers should do and workers were kind of engaged in the process with managers, then you kind of don't need the profession. They don't actually bring any new expertise. to the process. And so
And did that threaten you?
hugely, I was like, the existential crisis. So I said, well, come on, Sydney. So surely this is a huge resource that organisations have got invested for safety. So surely there's a way that we can turn this resource into, something positive for organisations, like good rather than evil. So I then started my PhD on what is the role of a safety professional. How could we use this resource within an organisation to support the capacities that organisations needed to make their workers successful? And here I am now.
And how did it go? I mean, walk us through the change that happened organizationally. I mean, did the people accept the fact that you said we're doing it wrong?
Well, so it was interesting because initially no, because management has some fairly strong ideas about what they think the organisation needs to do to improve. So I said, at the time, I said, give me 4 weeks. We're going to go into the organisation and ask the workers what they need to be successful and to be safer.
Did you have a burning platform? Had you had a fatality or a serious accident?
Yeah,
did you have a reason, or did you just go into this?
So we'd started a massive LNG project, and we'd sort of mobilised about 15,000 workers at the start of a big construction project. So the injury rates had gone up by 400% within 6 months. So the burning platform, in a sense of, was kind of there in the injury performance. So management just needed a big and strong reaction to that performance trend, and I just said, just give me a couple of weeks. I don't know what we need to do yet, but I'm going to go and find out what we need to do. And so then I kind of went and got some data. I took managers and safety advisors into the field, and we just talked to people on the front line about their experience of, how safe they felt, or what was challenging with their work, what they need to be successful. And then I came back to the organisation and said, we did 50, 60, 70 visits to different sites and discussions with teams. And, none of those workers said, give us more rules, give us more safety training. None of those things that management had on the table is going to be really, really useful and effective interventions were what the workers said. And that was enough data for the organisation to kind of listen. Just having that data of saying, what you guys think is not what your people think.
God, that's a remarkable story, though. I mean, it's remarkable in that you're able to go out and pilot and do all these focus groups and talk to people. But it's remarkable that when you came back and said none of the groups wanted more leadership, they wanted more rules, they wanted more regulations, more compliance, that management was able to accept that.
It was a fairly compelling set of data. It was a fairly compelling set of data to say this is what your people say.
It still requires a maturity level of managers to be able to accept that data. I mean, I can imagine a scenario where they said, they don't know what they're talking about. I know better than they do.
Yeah, and there's a whole lot of politics around that. I mean, I had some good supporters. I had some good credibility within senior stakeholders. I had some space that allowed me to be listened to, and then I got support of the middle management in the organisation that didn't just want to do another program that senior management had pushed down. And I think I had the respect and the support of the safety organisation as well. So I don't think it could happen in any organisation, but I would say that you can go into your organisation and get information and hold that information up logically and rationally to your top management and say, you can go and do this. That's fine. We can do this, but your people don't think that it's going to make any difference. And in fact, your people are probably going to think it's a waste of resource and a waste of time and makes their work harder. So you can you can separate yourself even further from where your workforce is now, or we can do some things together that actually bring you guys closer to what your people need. And I think management today can understand that. They want to be more effective organisations. They want to be more efficient organisations. They want to have better culture. And I think some of these things are easier for organisations to understand now.
Yeah, I'm 100% with you. How did this become ForgeWorks? And why the name ForgeWorks? That's the second question. That's actually maybe the most important question for me, at least. So
look, the business it's a long story. I'll try not to be too long. So
we got nothing but time. It's a podcast. You just want to kill time.
That's look, I mean, I started a business called Safety 21. It was meant to be safety for the 21st century, and the basis of that was to say that look, it's 2020, and
it sounds like a girl's clothing line.
Does it?
Yeah, Safety 21.
Oh, good.
Let's go to the mall and go to Safety 21. They've got really good leotards.
Yeah, so there you go. Well, but the idea was I could walk into most organisations and look at what they were doing in safety and find the exact same thing that I found when I started my career in the 1990s. and like procedures and training, induction and audits and loss control systems or whatever it was. It was kind of like, it's like 2 decades of innovation and research in other disciplines, and we were still kind of going, let's make a better checklist. So that was the idea behind Safety 21, looking at research and practice in the 21st century and organisations today and what they needed to manage the complex environments they're in. And then once we started growing, we started to realise we were doing work that wasn't really just safety. It was kind of like operational improvement work, and the name wasn't very unique. So we invested a bit in branding and strategy, and then try to practice what you preach. So I had a strategy company come in, and I could see them being a bit uncomfortable. And I said, okay, well, what do you really want to say? I said, your name's rubbish. It's not unique. It's not different. In a couple of years,
you're going to be a girl's clothing line.
It sounds like a girl's clothing line. In a couple of years, you're going to be talking people that were born in the 21st century and stuff like that. So,
really? They said that?
Yeah, they said.
Oh man, that's humbling.
It's got no longevity.
That makes it. That hurts a little, kind of.
Yeah. So then we basically did like a word association type ink block test, which is what are the words that resonate really well with how you guys see yourself as a business, and Forge was a word that we really resonated with. Forge means to move ahead in a general direction, following a set of principles or a set of coordinates or something, and come across adventure and challenges and difficulties, but kind of, work to overcome those. And we also like the forging relationships and forging ahead and, all of these things that are really kind of representative of organisational approach, in organisational life. And then you get into the what are we going to pair it with? Because, you can't go and buy Forge.com unless you've got a couple of $1 million to spend. So then we wanted to do something that was was active, a bit like a verb, So ForgeWorks was designed to be like, a bit of a throwback to the Industrial Revolution and times of blacksmithing and be action orientated and be progressive. And so it just kind of came together like that over a few months. And, at one point we had a bigger team around us in terms of a marketing person and a strategy person and a copywriting person. There was a bigger support team than we actually had as a employee base, but, we're really happy with how it all kind of came together. And, it seems to go pretty well in the market. So we're really happy.
Where do you see the future? What are you looking for in 10 years, in 15 years?
So my hope, or I suppose it's a bit of a work-related life purpose now, I sort of say to enhance the capability of the global safety profession. My hope is that we've got, there might be 1 million safety professionals in the world. I think when I look at it,
So I just heard there's 3 million safety professionals in China alone. I just heard that data.
There you go. Well, I tried to do the sums and tried to look at the number of people that were in the INSPO professional associations and times that by about 4 or 5 in terms of how many extra people that are in the roles that aren't part of their professional association. Try to look at just the English-speaking market, and the numbers straight away over $1 million. Sorry, over a million people.
Freudian slip. That was
Freudian slip. That's a consultant brain just kicking in, going, "How big's this market?"
This is over $1 million.
But my hope is that we can really reach as many of those people as we can and help them improve their organisations from the inside out.
What's that look like?
So we're working on a scalable sort of coaching and development service at the moment, which is sort of going to come out this year under a new brand called Safety Futures, which is going to be about helping the safety profession, create a better safety future for themselves and for their organisation. So, but sort of action learning orientated, kind of like professional development, basically introduction to all of these different types of ideas and some things that they can do in their organisations and reflect on, and to develop greater capability, to think about their role in different ways, in new ways, in more effective ways, and just reach as many people in the profession as we can. Because really, you can't really change too much as a small consulting business going job to job. But we feel like we can make some real change if we can kind of reach people in their roles.
Is that why you did like the workshop you did last week with Eric and Dr. Decker, although he wasn't officially there, right?
No, Sydney was a participant in Brisbane, Safety 2 in Practice, Safety 2 Bris Vegas, which was 2 weeks ago.
Bris Vegas?
Bris Vegas.
That's actually a really good word for Brisbane. If you've never been to Brisbane, that kind of makes sense. Although the casino won't let me in.
In Brisbane?
Yeah.
What did you do there?
You can't wear a hat.
Really?
And they were so mean to me about it that I said, well, if I can't wear my hat, I'm not coming in. And they said, well, we don't want you.
Really?
So I said, well, I don't want to come in. So
Could you not have called it a religious hat or something?
I didn't. I wish I would have thought of that. You know what they told me? I couldn't wear a hat because it messes up their ability to do face identification.
Oh, overhead. Yeah.
No, the AI.
Okay.
They use AI to identify, I guess, casino cheats. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't like. They didn't say that part, but I'm guessing that's what it is.
Wow. There you go. So you guys had a standoff and you walked out?
Yeah. And,
there's only one casino in Brisbane.
And it's a casino. I mean, the way I got it figured is if you don't go to casino, you won. So I think I kind of won. But yeah, that's Bris Vegas. So how'd that meeting go?
So the meeting went well. We had more than 90 people in the room.
God, that's crazy, really?
Yeah, we had
all Australian, or where were they from? No,
we had some down from Hong Kong and other parts of Asia. A couple over from the States. We had people from New Zealand and all over Australia. We had people from almost every industry. We had construction, mining, oil and gas, and healthcare, and it was just it was a great conversation. We had industry speakers who'd been working with these ideas for some of them more than 5 or 6 years. I think they were able to show some real holistic change in their organisational approach. So companies like Queensland Urban Utilities, which was part of Sydney's Doing Safety Differently video that came out in December. We had other organisations that we'd been working with, consulting, or Griffith University had been working with over the last 5 or 6 years. So I think that gave a lot of people a lot of inspiration and motivation and practical guidance about how to take these steps. A little bit like what you do in all of your workshops, Todd. It's the stories, it's the examples, it's kind of like the small changes that they can make tomorrow in the way they think or the way that they act, and sort of people feeling like they've got permission to and a means to go and do that.
What advice would you give people today, knowing what you know now? You've been on the journey a pretty good long time. I mean, it's done big changes for you.
Yeah.
What would you say?
You can do a lot one conversation at a time. You can. So in the room the other week with it, I sort of asked everyone in the room, put your hands up if you think that injury rates are a bad indicator measure of safety. Everyone in the room put their hand up. Then I asked the room, hands up if you've had that conversation with your CEO and your board, and half the hands went down. I said, well, you kind of got to have the conversation. And that's what I probably learnt when I really started to try and change a very large organisation. When I was trying to do it as 20,000 people, huge geographic and operational diversity, and just started having the open conversations. And people listen. People listen to good evidence and good data and a strong narrative and good stories. So that would be my encouragement to people, that don't complain about your organisation if you haven't at least had the conversation with your organisation.
Do me a favor, keep doing it. It's fun to watch you.
Yeah, thanks. We're having a lot of fun. We're feeling like we can help more organisations than we could just working within one, and hopefully we can kind of keep the ball rolling. And you're doing a great job. And there's such a great ecosystem around this around the world that people can tap into so easily now. When I started, there wasn't LinkedIn, there wasn't podcasts, there wasn't.
You're really
access.
old. I mean, you're old.
Yeah,
old man.
Not that old. Pretty old.
Do me one favor though. More anvil in your logo.
More anvil. Oh, you know what? It's a funny story. Our trademarking for ForgeWorks, actually, you're not allowed to trade something that's literal. Okay, so our trademark description actually says in the Australian trademarking thing that the provision of sort of safety and risk management services, specifically excluding the bending of metal. We're not allowed to trademark ourselves for services that involve the bending of metal. Specifically.
Specific metal bending.
Yeah.
Psychic metal bending all day long.
There you go. Yes,
Specific metal
we
building.
can bend and manipulate people and organizations, but not metal.
Wills.
Yeah, wills.
You can bend a lot of stuff, just not metal.
Absolutely.
Man, thanks for your time. This is
no
fun.
Problem. Thank you.
So there you're having a pre-COVID-19 conversation with David Provan. I'm glad you got to meet him. If you don't know him, he's someone you want to meet. Just as nice and as kind as the day is long. And that goes a long way with me. I mean, kindness seems to be really important. You know what? I should probably talk about this in a whole podcast. But I'm mostly fixated on the notion of generosity. And I think that's going to be a real big delineator when we look back on lessons learned from our adventures with COVID-19, the tragedy of COVID-19. Generosity is going to be key. Cultures are going to be made and sunk based upon organizations and people being generous. Not to be too depressing, because it can't be. That doesn't get us anywhere. But I did want to take some time and let you enjoy the sweet musings of David Provan. Thanks for being a part of the podcast. It means so much that you're here. It's really nice to have you. And I mean that. That's a really good thing to have. Listen a lot. Tell your friends. Hang out with me more. You're always welcome. I enjoy having you as a part of this conversation. Take care of yourself. Learn something new every single day. Have as much fun as you possibly can. Be kind to each other. Be generous. And for goodness sakes, you guys, be safe.